What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to start the disassembly of the CTS-V drift car in anticipation for a LS2 that we built on the channel. You can look back at some of the older videos to see us assembling that LS2, and also a LT4 supercharger that, as you saw in the last video, if not, go check it out. We laid our LT4 supercharger on the LS6 that's in the car using the adapter plates just to see what it would look like, see what kind of clearance is, and we kind of made note of the different things that we might have to modify, change, and just work around in this car. So I pulled the front bumper off. First time after the last drift event that I got into a collision with on the front right corner, but my bash bar literally saved like the entire front end of this car. Headlight got into the other guy, but this bash bar, you can see where it contacted the other car, and we're in good shape. Yeah, I'm amazed on how I got out of this, and we went wheel to wheel too and managed to bend nothing. So this is the only bad side at the moment. We got to do a new fender off the parts car and whatnot. I also got dollies today. So I went to Harbor Freight, picked up some dollies so that I can move the car around in the garage to have space to work on it in the front, because I have my refrigerator, workbench, cabinetry in the front. So we don't have a lot of front working space. So that'll make pulling the engine easier. And then once I'm done for the night, I can clean up. I can spin the car back into its spot, and then we can put both cars back in the garage. So right now I just got the bumper pulled, and I guess I'm gonna start draining fluids. I'm gonna start with draining the radiator, because then I'm gonna go ahead and get my homemade rad support off and oil coolers and all that. Basically get the whole front of this stripped off. That way we can kind of start working our way in towards the engine and basically get to the point to where we can get this thing pulled. So I'm gonna try and remove as much as I can all around here, and then go ahead and we'll yank the engine. We might not be yanking the engine today, but it will be in this video at least. We have our Bono Specialties silicone radiator hoses available on stansco.jp. These are the yellow ones. We have purple, we got blue, we got pink, green. Check out the website. Current inventory is on there. Last set of radiator hoses you're gonna have to buy for these cars. And then basically once these fans come out the back, we'll get our, wow. The yellow really shows how dirty this thing has gotten. Being tucked down there and going through the occasional off-road adventure at the track. I will definitely say, well, I got to get the supercharger out of here, but I would definitely say it's interesting to see how things held up over the course of 3 years of drifting. And I guess 4 years, well, I'll say 3. I'm not going to count 2026 because it's so early in the year. We've only done like 3 events this year. Oil cooler, everything held up fine here, no problems. I'm gonna, I guess, loosen up the AN lines and get this thing drained and out of the way. Ultimately it has to come off the engine, but we'll do that when we're under the car. We got our power steering cooler off. We got the AC condenser out. So I just drained our power steering lines right here. We're not going to be reusing any of this. All this stuff is going to be routed differently, because I think I would like to try to do the power steering cooler either mounted out further to the bash bar, or try and relocate them behind the fog light in this area over here. I'm not really sure what I want to do yet, because I want to try and get the most unrestricted air through the heat exchanger, through the radiator, to maximize cooling. And I don't really want a hot oil cooler and a hot power steering cooler kind of being the first wave there and heat soaking. And ultimately, no matter what the order, and even if they're behind the heat exchanger, the radiator being that last line of defense, I guess you could say, in that cooling stack, and then ultimately being the least priority when it comes to cooling. So everything looks pretty good. Everything is just very dirty. Got a lot of dirt everywhere, and this is definitely going to take some cleaning. I will say my summit pulley did not hold up very well. They come clear coated, but that clear coating certainly did not last. I mean, the pulley itself worked fine, it's still functional, but it definitely needs a little cleaning up. I think there was one event back in the early days before I even had hood vents, and I was spraying water in my radiator through the bumper. I think this was just getting wet, and that kind of kick-started it, but I think it was just gonna happen no matter what. But either way, we'll probably be pulling this off. This is the 25% underdrive. This is what I'm convinced kept this power steering pump alive. I mean, this is a factory power steering pump, but brand new OEM, and they don't like to be spun fast. So I think that really helped in that situation. This will be something I might have to deal with in the future. I'm going to be using the same power steering pump, but we're going to be adding an inline filter, and we're also going to be doing a better cooler, even better cooler than what we had, which is better than the factory. But keeping this cool is going to be very important in making it live at the end of the day, really. So we'll get the pump taken out once, I'll probably get pulled with the engine, but we'll get all these lines disconnected, and we pretty much got, I think, the whole reservoir drained, and we'll keep on going. Harness will be the last thing before the engine comes out, but really getting this oil cooler disconnected is kind of the last thing that can be done on the front, other than obviously taking the supercharger out, but that's not even attached, it's just laying there. And then we'll have to get under the car, which will probably be a tomorrow thing. We'll get under the car, we got to pull the exhaust off the headers, we got to drop the drive shaft so that's disconnected from the trans, remove the trans mount, and then we will drop the headers. And once that's done, really it's just unplug all the wiring, pick this thing up, take it out. You know, it's easier said than done. You know, it's quite a few hours of work to do that, but we're getting somewhere. I have a crank pulley in the mail for this, so hopefully at some point during this video this shows up. And I have to do a little bit of clearancing on the inside of this cover here, this front cover, because we have that dual roller timing chain. But we'll get our crank pulley on, we'll get our crank pulley pinned. Heads, oil pan, accessories will have to come off this engine, go on this engine, and then we'll be able to take this engine, put it in the car. I also have to order new lifters. Since we're doing a new cam, I'm gonna get new lifters. We'll measure for push rod length and all that later. I have 7.4s in this engine. So we'll see if the 7.4s work. If they do, then we'll just run them. But otherwise, we'll be checking some piston and valve clearance when that time comes. But yeah, looks pretty good. We're doing
later.
So we took a break. I had some family come into town, so Morgan and I kind of put everything on hold as far as work goes. So we hung out with my family and all that for the last week. So right beforehand, I just dove in and I started disassembling the car. You know, we got the engine pulled and I just started taking things apart, but then also putting things aside because I wanted to get as much done before my family came down. That way we didn't have to touch anything. And, you know, I got to a point where I was laying things out to do kind of like a damage report to show what some things look like after 3 years of drifting. Now, we beat the ever-living crap out of this V every single time it left the driveway, sometimes even in the driveway. So I have a couple things I want to show you guys. Obviously an empty engine bay, and a couple things I want to show you guys. Just interesting things about how things wore and things like that. And I'll show you the engine. I got it on the stand. I got some things mocked up on it. And later in this video, actually, all right, the next video, we're going to be pulling the oil pan off the old engine, and I'll show you the old engine. We're going to be pulling the oil pan and kind of looking in depth of the bottom end of that engine. So I'm going to stop rambling on and we're going to spin around here. We have our engine bay. So everything came out nice and easy. Engine bay looks good. I have some things labeled in the wiring harness. I'm going to pull the engine wiring harness out and we're going to put it on the engine because I basically need to open up the loom and route some things a little differently. And I'm going to basically put the engine harness back on the car or back on the engine before it goes in. So that way everything is where it needs to be and route it and all that. I am going to clean the engine bay. Initially, I was going to repaint it again, but I decided against it just for the sake of time. And the silver's still in good shape. It just needs a good cleaning. But down here, my old battery used to leak. So we have some surface rust that I'm going to pull the battery tray out, address that, repaint that area, but the rest I'm just going to clean it up. So we're also going to have to pull our factory fuel lines out here. And I think that's pretty much it. The rest is just going to be cleaning. So that's no big deal. Give it a good scrub down in here and plan for what we're gonna do over here as far as the power steering reservoir. We're gonna need a supercharger fill point. That's like the high point for bleeding and all that stuff. So we'll get there when we get there. But let's go over here. So we have the new engine, we have the old engine. Now, let me grab a light. We're gonna take a look at the old engine first. Now, like I mentioned before, every time I drained the oil in this thing, it had oil on the drain plug, more so recently, but it always had a shimmer to the oil. Now, what you see right here, aside from the oil pump, crank pulley, and the oil pan baffle, has 238,000 miles on it. The last like 1,500 miles have been drifting miles. So let's, shout out to this engine for just being a trooper, still making good oil pressure, but just losing oil or losing metal. So we're gonna dive in here and looking at our cylinder walls, the cylinder walls still look pretty good. I mean, let me grab a rag so I can wipe some of the residue out and any kind of like dirt and dust. But looking in here, the cylinder walls look pretty good for a 238,000 mile engine. You know what I mean? They still have a cross hatch in them that you can see, and like that cross hatching looks pretty solid to me. So I'm happy with that. I pulled the lifters out. The lifters all looked great. Cam lobes also all look pretty great. We'll pull the cam out of this engine just to see as well, to further inspect like the journals or where the bearings ride and all that, because this is still original cam bearing, original main bearings, original rod bearings. So I'm wondering if when we crack open the bottom end, if that's where we're gonna see some things hiding, you know what I mean? We had killer oil leak on this thing. This oil cooler adapter was leaking. That was one thing. I think my oil pan gasket was leaking a little bit. For the longest time, I thought my rear main was leaking, and I don't think it was, which is hilarious because I was like, oh, rear main's leaking, rear main's leaking. All right, we'll get to the clutch in a minute. Let's spin it the other way around. No leaks on the front, but then I discovered this other leak. I discovered that my dipstick O-ring was hard and crusty, and the reason for a lot of oil coming out of the engine. Now, Morgan's brother Kyle, which you guys may have seen in one of the videos over the summer, he just dealt with this, where his hole was open because he swapped the front sump and didn't plug it, and on the dyno, the car was blowing oil out of the dipstick hole. So mine just had a really poor seal. So I think a lot of my oil leaking was all just because of a dipstick tube O-ring. So on the new engine, we are going to make sure that our dipstick tube O-ring is new and snug, so we don't have to deal with that again. Now let's swap to the clutch here. So for a clutch, I was running an eBay clutch on this car for 3 years. It is a Vallejo pressure plate with a 6-puck disc. That was a like stage 4 6-puck disc, which was overkill, and then the appropriate flywheel. Now, this is not an LS7 flywheel. It is kind of like an LS6 style flywheel for like the Corvettes. So it's the flat face, it's not the recessed face like like I run in my black car and whatnot. But as long as the whole clutch kit is together with the flywheel, everything's happy. So I ran all this with an LS7 Slave, and when I pulled it out, again, the clutch has given me no problems, 3 years. The only clutch issues I've ever run into were master cylinder related. We got plenty of heat in this thing. Look at that. Again, beat the crap out of this thing. Clutch kicks, riding the clutch, whatever it may be. And we also got our pilot bearing out. The pilot bearing, I think it kind of wiggled out with the trans. I don't think it was halfway out on its own, but we'll show you the pilot bearing because that's an interesting one. We have ARP hardware here we're going to be reusing, and we ordered a new clutch. Now, as far as the clutch goes, we have our pressure plate, same deal, a lot of hot spots. Now, this is a Vallejo pressure plate, and the way I kind of describe this to people is it's kind of like a LS7 clutch with a upgraded disc, 6-puck disc instead of full face, and that's kind of what I go with when I try to explain people what kind of clutch it is. But honestly, while it is evident that heat has been in this clutch, there's still a good amount of material left. Like, I 100% would have continued running this clutch and wouldn't have thought anything of it. So pretty happy with the way the clutch life went for a $380 eBay clutch that I took a chance on. And honestly, I ordered the exact same clutch for the car this time around. So we'll see if it holds the additional power. You know, we're gonna try it out. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't. So now the only things that were alarming where I'm switching to replacements is one, our throwout bearing. Let's see if you can hear this. I'm gonna put it next to the mic. So the throwout bearing has some wiggle to it and it just makes noise. So this throwout bearing was on our LS7 Slave. So we popped this off. We have a new throwout bearing coming. You can actually find replacement throwout bearings on Rock Auto. So we're gonna pop a new throwout on there. The Slave, the boot doesn't even have dust on it. So we're good there. I was alarmed at first about the in and out, not in and out, sorry. There is no in and out play of the input shaft, but the side to side, up and down wiggle. But you got to figure once this is sitting in the pilot bearing, then it should, prevent that wiggle from happening and everything is just lined up with the crank. So not too worried about that. This trans has 238,000 miles on it as well. We have our speed bleeder. All that stuff looks good. We're just going to leave that untouched. I power washed the trans and we're just going to do a fluid change on it and put it back in. However, before we get to the pilot bearing, there is a bracket, a shifter bracket that goes right here. And I noticed that the bushings were shot. Now I put these little DIY plastic bushings from Home Depot, some forum trick from years ago, and I noticed that one of them didn't have the metal sleeve in it that this pin goes through, and that was kind of alarming that I've been running it that long without it. Maybe the cause of some of my shifter problems throughout the years, and the one without the sleeve naturally ovalized. So I was like, okay, I need to either get more of these and go find the proper metal sleeve, but then I kind of got an idea. It's almost as if I have this tool right over there in the garage that allows me to build parts out of certain materials that could potentially work in a situation like this. So that's where we ended up with this. So I ended up taking measurements of what I had in here, you know, the sleeve that it has to sit in and all that. And then we're just gonna ditch the inner sleeve and just see, you know, how it fits around the pin and all that. So we got a snug fit with the pin, and I actually am printing another set right now that are a little wider here so that it's a little more snug in here. Right now there's still a little bit of play to it, so I took a better measurement and we got a little wider on the base there. But I basically 3D printed replacement polyurethane bushings for the shifter arms here. So they'll go on each side, they will go through, the pin will press through, and that'll be that. We should be good. So we're gonna grease it up with some silicone grease that's good for polyurethane, and we're gonna see how they last. And if they last, they'll be available on stansco.jp in a few months. So we're just gonna do that. instead of, we're going to ditch the plastic conduit or whatever the heck this is that worked for 3 years, and I just apparently misplaced the bushing when last time I put it together. These poly bushings right here are from Rev Shift or Creative Steel, one or the other, I forget. I think they're Rev Shift, so these are holding up fine. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. This whole platform could move because I was totally missing a sleeve there. So that's that. Now let's go to the pilot bearing. We gotta go over here. So right here we have the pilot bearing that I pulled out of the engine. I popped the grease covers off because I noticed there was some grease around on the crank. And I looked in here and it is bone dry, guys. Like, let's go next to the mic again. And then when I shake it, that's what we get. It is a bone dry pilot bearing with some wiggle to it as well. So I'm like, okay, that's not good. That's been in there for 3 years. So while it spins fine, having no grease is not good when it's spinning at the RPM of an engine. So enter a brand new OEM NSK GM bearing. It is nice and tight and quiet. So we're gonna be, even though the clutch kit is gonna come with this exact same bearing, we're going to be putting in an OEM bearing from NSK. Here is the part number in case you're ever curious of what a V1 pilot bearing is from GM. They're like 15 bucks, maybe less, but there's your part number. So that's what we're gonna be doing there. And so we're gonna be running the same pressure plate, flywheel, clutch disc, just all brand new. But then we're gonna be running OEM bearing here, a new throwout bearing on the trans, and the same, you know, clutch lines, bleeder lines, all that stuff was fine. So now let's go over to the engine, see where we're at. Also, we have our new set of little bushings being printed out here, so that's pretty cool. When I print with certain materials, I don't have an enclosure, so I throw a sheet over it to help keep in there warm and kind of keep out the air that's blowing out of the mini split. So if you see my ghetto sheet, that's why. So let's go over to the engine here. So on the front of my engine, this is my LS2 out of Kenny's GTO that I rebuilt myself. I pulled my cylinder heads and right now I just have them resting on there. I checked out the rocker arms, the push rods, everything on the top end still looks fantastic. I mean, that stuff is only 3 years old, so we all look good there. We're gonna keep it as is. I laid the heads on with the headers just so I can lay the supercharger on top and then also start attaching all of my accessories. So to start, we have the LSA accessory drive. Now this is my factory belt here. I don't really remember the routing, but I think it goes something like this. And this goes over here. And that goes down here. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much, yeah, that's how it goes. Okay, so this is like the LSA belt accessory drive here. We are using factory LSA crank pulley, so it has the provision, that 8-rib pulley. We are using the factory bracket, metal bracket in here, steel bracket in here, or cast bracket, whatever. We're using OEM idlers, and we are using the OEM style bracket here and tensioner here for the supercharger. Then behind that, we have an LS3 water pump. So our water outlet is down under here. And then we have a V1 belt tensioner right here, which I also, you can hear noise with that. I was able to order a new pulley for it. The tensioner was fine. So I just grabbed a new pulley for a couple bucks. We're gonna throw a new pulley on there. And then that's gonna come down here to this idler, which still seems good to me. And then we're gonna have our V1 alternator, our V1 power steering pump, and then obviously reroute or redirect or reposition our power steering reservoir. So what I ended up doing as well was ordering new bolts, new hardware for everything on the front. Not all of it's installed yet, but we have all matching silver zinc coated hardware. I took measurements for everything. So all the accessory brackets and things like that are gonna have new matching hardware. So that'll be super nice just to give give it a clean, fresh look. I hit this with some Scotch-Brite. I'm gonna probably try and metal polish the throttle body out a little better. But we got the throttle body attached, and this is just my old intake. I'm gonna try to incorporate this guy if I can trim this to fit, and then have this go out towards the headlight. So this is how we're looking right here. What I need to do next with this is bolt down the heads with new head gaskets, and then I gotta flip this thing upside down and do the oil pan and the pickup tube and all of that. On this engine, I'm curious, we're gonna dive into it in the next video, but I'm curious what it's gonna look like. I wanna open up the oil pump, and I wanna pop off some caps and check out some bearings, because basically that metal has to be coming from somewhere. And I didn't see it any kind of wear on the rocker arms or the lifters or anything in the top end, which was all relatively new stuff. So it's gotta be somewhere in here. So we're gonna hopefully find something that's showing evident wear that we can be like, okay, this is the cause for it. What I wanna do with this engine is basically what I did with this. I wanna do a re-ring, a new set of bearings all around, and then a new oil pump, and keep it wrapped in plastic, oiled down for a rainy day when it either finds home in another project, or I don't want to wish it upon myself, but if something goes wrong with my home built LS2. So one more thing I want to show you guys that I'm contemplating going down that road and attacking with my deadline of June. And that is some body modifications. Now I want to rewrap the car, and I want to swap out some body panels on the car, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm gonna have time to rewrap the car. It's all timing thing. So while this car might run, I plan on peeling the wrap, and it's probably gonna be pretty ugly because it's gonna have some black panels from the parts car and whatnot, but you know, the wrap will come after we shake this thing down and get it sorted out. And the new, you know, design and all that jazz. So this is what I'm working on now. This video kind of turned into like working on the car, and now it's just catching you up where I'm at. But then the next video, we will do some wrenching on the engine because the clutch is on its way, the throwout bearing is on its way. And once those two things show up, ultimately, there's nothing holding me back other than doing the wiring harness and like cleaning up the engine bay a little better before putting this thing, this one, the new one, right back in. So let me show you the last little update we have here. I decided that I wanted to take this time to try and make this car wider. Now, there are talks and rumors of companies that are gonna start doing over fenders and things like that, which is cool. And maybe if that day comes, I will remove what I'm doing here and, you know, slap an over fender on the car, whatever it may be. But I think I'm gonna take a shot at trying to wide body this car for two reasons. One, it will put my front wheels with the extended lower control arms, the angle kit, all that stuff, make it perfectly flush with the fender, which would, that'd be good. In the rear, it would allow me, I would run a spacer probably, but it would allow me to run a wider tire, like a 255 or more so a 265, which what that will do for me is give me more grip because the car's gonna be making more power, but also not even from a grip standpoint, just a tire life standpoint, because the 265s, you get better heat dissipation and things like that. So I think it'll look a lot better, and I'll have less rubbing and just more flexibility of what I can do in the back of the car. So let me show you what I got now. I ordered 3-inch sheet metal flares. Now these flares are handmade, and they are 3 inches, and I think they're gonna fit the car. So obviously this is just taped on. It's not like perfectly, like you can see it's like a little further up in the back than the front, but you get the idea. But the car has no weight in the front either, so we got massive wheel gap. But like, check this out. So it's a 20 gauge sheet metal flare. These would ultimately have to be tack welded and body worked onto the car. But then like the wheels turned a little bit, but like we would be flush in the front. Yeah, that would be perfect fitment right there. We'd be at the stance shows, you know what I mean? And we might, yeah, it would be good. It'd be really good. And we wouldn't have to worry about rubbing up front as much either. So like, I love the way that looks, and I think we might be able to pull it off. We have some spare front fenders, so We're gonna try it on the spares first. I'm gonna practice getting my welder dialed in. It's gonna be a tedious process. But then in the rear is where it really shines. So check that out. If you can see down the body line, we're gonna creep down here. We have our 3-inch flare taped onto the rear as well. It looks kind of ridiculous without a wider wheel and tire on it, but 3-inch flare, same deal. And the only hairy part is it might get into the door a little bit, or we might be able to bend it so that it's right on the door seam, which would be kind of cool. So if we can kind of arch it so that it's right on the seam of the door, and that way we don't have to worry about cutting, trimming, or anything like that to invade the door. That would be kind of ideal, but I think we can pull this off and we can make this look pretty sick. And like I said, we could probably put a spacer on in the rear to fill it out in the meantime, because we have a lot of 245s stocked up, but then we can start running a wider tire on this thing. More aggressive offset wheels, like these are 9+20s, so they are not very aggressive. So we can definitely start getting into more aggressive wheels on this thing as well. So that is the side quest that I'm attacking. And then we also have the gas pedal, which I'll talk about in a later video that we're gonna put in. So it's a lot of just figuring out what has worn out on this car after, 3 solid years of purely drifting. And the car, we had some issues with the car and things we've redone throughout, but it's like those parts on the engine where literally I put this car together and like drivetrain wise, I never touched a thing. I changed the oil and that was it. This car ran and it just took everything I threw at it. So it owes me nothing. None of those parts owe me anything. So it's really cool to see how this thing really just was a dependable car, and it probably still would have been, but ultimately what I wanted to not do was run it so far into the ground that something catastrophic happened to this LS6 and I lost the block, because there's a lot of value in LS blocks, aluminum LS blocks. So to be able to still have a LS6 block that is very good and just needs bearings and rings, that is worth it for me. And that's kind of why I wanted to try and be preventative on this instead of not touching it, and then one day it lets go at the track and blows up or loses oil pressure, and it's junk. It's a piece of scrap metal. So we got 2 LS's here, and I'm ready to hear this thing whistle. My goal this year for Stansco has also been to not bog myself down so much with developing like some big new part. Like last year was the front lower control arms, and like they work now, but it took a lot of testing, took a lot of trial and error, it took a lot of money to try and get to the point where it's a functional part. And they're on my car now. They're on the X-Comp-V. They ran them at an event. They're gonna be running them again soon in a few weeks. And so we have a part that works and that's cool, but like it just bogs me down so much, and it just, it's a lot of money. So I'd rather, I decided in 2026 that I'm not gonna start making new, like crazy, big, expensive R&D heavy parts. We're gonna dial it back. But that is why now, if you're still here watching, we are now offering a lot of other parts. We have a lot of other parts available to us because we have a wholesale distribution account, which is cool, or an account with a wholesale distributor, one of which I used to work for back in the day. But we have things now on the Stansco website, like oil change kits. So you can go on the website. Our oil change kits feature K&N oil filters for the V1, and we send you 7 quarts of Redline 5W30 oil. And so it's 7 quarts of oil and an oil filter for the car. And basically you hit buy, we ship it right to the door. And that's it. And then the other thing that I plan to start offering, well, it's actually available on the site now, are brake pads. So the brake pads for the rear calipers is one thing that people have asked me about before. So we have Hawk HPS pads available on the site, and we have Centric Posi Quiet semi-metallic pads on the site. These Centric ones are actually pretty cool because they come with the caliper rebuild hardware, like the pins and the springs and all that. So the Posi Quiets are limited because they're no longer available, but we have the HPS pads on the site. So go check those out. And basically you can now order a dual caliper bracket or the full kit, and then you can add on brake pads that you can use with your Brembo calipers. So it's just another step into creating an all-in-one solution for people. Now with that, I feel like I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. The next video, like I said, we're gonna tear into the LS6. I'm gonna get a little more organized this weekend. I'm gonna have time. And we are going to try and finalize and wrap up our LS2 and get this thing as close as we can be, so that when my clutch arrives, it'll be closer to just being ready to go in the car. Like I said, the goal is to have this thing running and tunable by the end of June when we go up north, so I can have a buddy of mine tune it. But even if it's very close and not completely finished, I'm gonna still carry this big paperweight up north, and you know, we're gonna still try and tune it at some point over the summer, finish it up. So with that being said, stay tuned. Next week we'll have another video digging further into this stuff so that we can get one step closer to having an LT4 blown LS2 powered first gen CTS-V drift car. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.